So, as we approach the new year, what new stories would you like to be telling? What would you like to be creating? And what would you really like to be feeling inside yourself? These are choices that we get to make every instant, right? Every moment can be new by a new choice, by a new decision. But there's something about the new year which does hold an energy that can really support change because everyone's involved in it. And we do often come to this end of December and then look back and review where we've been, and then also look ahead and cast, the picture, the vision that we'd actually like to be living next. And so, because so many people are in that story and connected to that story, it can have power. But what I encourage you to do is, instead of stressing yourself out, which is easy, and I almost started doing that to myself this past couple of days, is take yourself out of the stress of it, because there's no have to, right? But actually instead move into the true spirit of this time and the kind of energy that you can, nurture inside yourself, and like create an energy around you that actually reflects a sense of calmness and clarity and peace and strength and power as well. So this is a choice, as I said, that we can make. And in order to make it, we actually have to stop doing certain things. And one of those things is to stop telling old stories. Now, I know this is easier said than done. I feel like I've wrestled with this many a time. And in the past, I never really felt like I received a clear enough answer. And yes, sometimes people just say, just stop doing it. But my mind was in that loop. So, if I could stop, of course I would. So what I like to do in this video is give you a picture of what is happening when we do that, and what is an alternate way that we can actually move ahead, so that we do end up living out new stories and shifting your energy, which is something I talk about a lot because it is a constant. It's not like, we do it once and it's done forever. But we do it and then new challenges come up. And certainly the more creative we are, the more ambitious we are, the more we want to have fun in this lifetime, the more we're going to experience those challenges, and we're going to come up against those certain kind of blocks within our own psyche or emotional realm, and we're going to have to choose to overcome them or succumb to them, right? It's always one or the other. So that's what this video is about. And as I do this, you may want to listen to it twice. I'll just say that now, because there's a lot that I say that at first glance, it may just sound like really common sense, but most often we don't listen to the common sense. We go and, listen to it, think we get it because we understand it intellectually, but then we're not embodying it. We're not like living it and feeling it and then shifting within to release the old structures that held the old stories in place. And also at the end of the video, I'll talk about ways that you can work with me if that's what you're interested in, because one-to-one help can really make the difference, from things taking months and years to really being able to shift certain pieces really quickly so that you can move into the next level faster and in a much more graceful way. So first of all, let's talk about those old stories that we tend to tell. And when I said we review, we often come to December and we review the old year. Sometimes, that can also bring up a lot of emotion, especially if it hasn't gone the way we wanted. And when we don't kind of deal with that, we do carry it on, right? We can't just change your mind alone and say, oh yeah, now I want this, I'll forget, let me just kind of brush everything under the rug. We actually need to kind of look at it and go what is the story? And if we can, actually separate ourselves enough so that we become the witness of it. What is the story being told? Because 10 other people may have a very different interpretation of your story. Some may have a worse interpretation. Some may have a 10 times better interpretation, and some may be quite similar to you. Especially if they know you, they're probably going to be telling similar stories or see you in a certain way. So to stop that is to first recognize that it is a picture. You're seeing something in a certain way, you're labeling it, giving it certain meanings, and then you're creating feelings that are a reaction to what is being said, believed, thought, understood. And we all know that sometimes we do misunderstand situations. We misunderstand each other. And then we can act on that instead of realizing, wait a second, there was an error here. There's something that I wasn't seeing. And that's when communication, getting to the truth, really being honest with yourself, and looking for ways to, like, what could I see that I'm not already seeing, will help you realize that that's just one version, and you can step away, and there are many, many different versions that are also available. And from there, that's when actually the space to create really begins. But with the old stories, even if you're reviewing the year, allow yourself to feel the disappointments that if you did have them. And I think most of us do have at least one, if not, several. And, allow yourself to feel through them, and allow yourself to say, hey, that's what it was, and I let that go. And there are many processes, and I'm not going to go into this in detail. It's actually better done one-on-one. But there's ways you can start letting that go so that you create space within yourself. And I'm talking about energetically, emotionally, mentally, so that you can create anew. And that's going to require some actions as well. So after feeling those, let's stop telling those old stories, right? It's very easy when we meet different people, or maybe we meet a friend that we haven't seen in a long time, and we're kind of, tempted to kind of go back and relive old experiences we have and talk about the traumas and the challenges and the problems. But what happens if we change that conversation and actually became much more present and also future oriented, present and future at the same time, what we're creating now? Not to deny what happened, but to acknowledge that in this moment is where the power is, where the choice is, right? Where you can access more of who you really are and access the true self and all that it sees and all that it is ready to create with you. So stopping telling those old stories is something that you're probably going to have to do over and over again, because we meet people all the time. You might journal, you might be sitting around just contemplating life, and these stories will make their way, back to your awareness. And so what happens when we tell them or we rethink them and we keep re-feeling those same emotions over and over? We're creating grooves in the brain, like neural pathways that have us travel that over and over again. It's like this path that we've created for ourselves. And by walking it over and over again, the path gets, deeper and stronger and wider, and makes it easier to travel. But the new story doesn't have a path yet. We have to create that, right? So instead of going into those grooves, and I find that image can be really helpful when we're telling an old story, and we're going, wait a second, I am going over an old groove, and I actually would like to dissolve that. And the way to dissolve that and, let that turn back into, like, I'm thinking of a forest now where we've created a path. Just let it create back into the soil and the dirt and have new growth in it, and spaciousness, and richness, and so that it can be more fertile for a new story. We stop going there. We give it a rest. We let it go. And that may mean literally cutting yourself off in the middle of a conversation where you're finding yourself doing there. It could mean stopping when you're, memorizing those old feelings over and over again, and saying, stop, I will not do this. And literally maybe going up and doing something completely different, to do an errand, going for a walk, literally going to maybe clean something in your house, like anything that is action oriented and gets you physical and gets you in the present will help you let that go, let that old story go, and shift into the present moment. And then energy shows up. And when energy shows up, we can create anew again. Okay, so this is huge. And while I'm only spending a few minutes on this, if you could do that for the next 3 months steadily, wow, guess what? Your manifestations and desires are going to become available to you at what will feel like a quantum rate at some times. At the very minimum, you're going to have a lot of peace inside you, a lot of space and clarity. I actually, I feel this often, but once in a while, I go into the contrast. But last week, I had an experience where I remember for a couple of hours, I just felt that. And I was almost like my mind was at a loss as to what to do, because the mind is always trying to fix and create new issues and problems and solve them, right? So, but it was just ease. And I had to say, hey, I can enjoy this piece. I can enjoy it because I don't even have to know if something's happening. It is happening because I'm not carried away by old stories right now. So I've just given myself 2 hours of kind of a blissful peace. And through that, the new can begin. And through that, I have a choice. What am I creating now? And so becoming conscious, stopping old conversations, stopping old thought patterns, and intentionally choosing to get quiet is going to pave the way so that those new grooves can be created. And that's when whatever actions we take, they're going to start becoming more powerful. Many times when I've started something totally new or gone in a brand new direction, it's because I took a very small but intentful, purposeful action, and all my will and desire, emotion was connected and aligned, and I just did the thing. And often it was like one small action, but it literally paved the way for the business to start, for a new opportunity to show up, to move country, to do all of these different things. And these are some of the things that I always find with my clients as well, because they come to me with this big vision, and then there's 10 million things they think they have to do in order to get there. And what we're doing when we work together is actually clearing that, like what I'm saying, dissolving the old stories, dissolving that to-do list that feels like forever, and bringing them to the present moment where that power to create that new energy is waiting to create, where it is fertile and it's rich soil. And from there, often it is the few actions that they take that then launches their next level, or activates it, or just multiplies it and amplifies it if that's where they're at. And so I can also think of examples, and especially in manifestations. I think this is one of the most maybe underrated elements of manifestation, is that when we really tap into what is true for us, a true heartfelt desire, it can manifest so much faster and in an easier way than when we are just going again by an old story and picture of what we think we should be creating, right? So I know for myself, many people, right, like owning a home, for example, is one of those things where it's like, oh no, I have to make this much money, I have to do this, I have to do that, to save, maybe I have to get a new job, maybe my business has to do 10 times what it is in order for this to ever to come be. And 99% of the time that actually isn't accurate. Now the 1% is because often the outside actions may look like that, and those things may very well support you. But I know in my own experience, when I've desired a manifestation that I then attribute it requires this amount of cash, for example, or these kind of contacts, which I don't think I have. And when I put that focus on, well, I better get the cash, make that much money, or really, grow my network, and that's going to take time. When I've gone into those kind of planning and strategy, I find I have just spent a lot of time waiting for that manifestation and creating more distance for it to come to me. But when I've honed in on, say, what is that money about? What am I going to do with it? Like, where do I actually have a love for how I will be using it, or how I will feel? It's come in ways that I haven't expected. Sometimes it has come in very practical ways, like business. But I basically am saying, like, let's open all of the channels so that wherever it wants to come, it will come. But that comes when we get true and we like pinpoint, like, where is that energy and the emotion? Because emotion is power, right? And so for me, for example, when it was the new home, like it materialized, and it materialized at the level that I actually wanted. Because before that, I was even trying to go, oh, well, let's compromise. Let's go for something that's not actually great. It'll be a stepping stone. But I had no energy behind it. I had no love there, right? And it wasn't until I opened that space and said, okay, like, what does my love actually want here, that I found things came in really quickly. And, this has gone for, as I said, for money, for contact. When I've thought, oh my gosh, I need a giant network. Or, obviously when we're on social media, we think, well, we need the, 100,000 followers, we need the 1 million followers. And it's amazing when I even watch people who are already at that level. They often say, like, they tell the stories of when they were brand new and what they would do. Because when we're brand new, we actually have a lot of power. We have a lot of energy because we're starting fresh. We're creating new grooves in this moment, right? So this is what you can do now. I know it's the end of the year. We just have about a week left, right? But you can make this your time. You can make this your time where every day you kind of nourish and nurture those new grooves. And you stop telling the old stories. You now focus on the new. There's a new year arriving. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to create with it? Yes, we have this question every year. And sometimes we feel like we still haven't gone as far as we wanted. But let's let go of that old story. And let's say, you know what? This time I'm moving towards what feels more. I'm just gonna keep tapping into what is true, and then I'm gonna chill out, and then I'm gonna do some action, and then in the action I'm gonna find out the places that there may be sticking points, and I'm gonna work through those, and I'm gonna release those, and then I'm gonna create new grooves, right? Like that honest commitment, that dedication, a real devotion to what you're creating. Devotion is a very different energy than achieving goals, right? We can devote to relationships, we can devote to these big visions, we can devote to the idea we want to be of service, we can devote to the idea I want to be super creative. We can devote to those things, and devotion includes love, includes feeling, includes a humbling where we accept that we don't know the answers most of the time, and we can open to having those answers arrive. We can open to them while still doing what it is that comes to us to do, so that we're not stopping and waiting and going, okay, like, where is it? What's happening? Come on, give me some major brainstorm. But instead of that panic and that fear, move into our will, because will is power. Or I'm going to will that I know this already exists. These new stories that I am feeling that I'm called to create, they're there for a reason, as I often say. And so what is fresh in them for me, right? Let's forget the old story. Let's forget the old picture. Let's forget how, the last 10 years I said I was supposed to be in this place by now. Let's forget that. It's gone. But we have the now. And in this moment, the beauty of that is that we don't have to just go like, I'm here and let me create the next little step. Sometimes that's good when we need to build our self-esteem. We just want a little more confidence, and or there's something really intentional we want. So we might do a little bit of that. But I'm also saying here that you can kind of let go an old story and create that new one, right? That's exactly what people do when they change careers or businesses, isn't it? I was doing this, but now, you know what? I want to do this. And they just say no to that old stuff, and then they head over here. That's it. Like, there doesn't have to be any drama about it either, right? Even, I'm making this amount of money, and now I want to make $1 million. That's just a new story. Making $1 million is a very different pathway than when you're making like $60,000, right? Or $20,000 or $500,000. It's a new path. And so we can choose that new path. And that's going to require a restructuring of what we're choosing, right? We're going to choose different things, aren't we? And when we choose different things, we're going to have different questions and different aspects and elements of who we really are that need to come forth, right? Maybe you need to show up more publicly. Maybe you need to hunker down and just like really focus for even a few weeks on this project that you know is really important to you, right? But you start being able to then look at those where you want to devote, and doing it in a way that nourishes you is so powerful. It will alter everything, because when we kind of do it out of a panic, and as I said, like even in the last couple of days, I found myself saying, oh, I want to get all this done the next week, and then I better be here. But, January, it was just like, what? Where was this old story coming from? And I can let it go. That's not what my body was feeling. That's not what my spirit was wanting. And so knowing that I could let that go, like, it was like, wow. And then I can tell a new story. Because when I tell a new story, I'm already it in a way. Am I not? Because I am telling it, because this is where all my attention is, right? So as I said, like, if you, I don't know, you were a hairstylist in this old life, and then over here you're being an entrepreneur, and you have a product or a service, and you do have that, say, $1 million goal, for example. This is a new identity. It's a new self, right? There's new questions, as I said, that you're going to be asking. And the more that you like engage in that, the more those, the answers come. You take your next step and the next, but you're like living into a bigger picture. You're already the entrepreneur because you're thinking that way, you're feeling that way, and then you're acting on that way. And then, when you're ready, you're also communicating to the people around you in that manner. Right? And then they know. And sometimes you have to tell people many, many times, because they'll want you to stick to the old identity, right? It's like, where are you going? Right? You're going ahead of us, right? They can, not always intentionally, but that kind of message can come through, and it's you who has to then recommit, and instead of keep devoting, is it, wake up in the morning, or where am I? And do I need to shift my state? Do I need to shift my thoughts today? And there will be times, and it's going to be humbling, where you're going to be, maybe you're going to be in tears, maybe you're going to be angry, maybe you're going to feel bitter. That's part of this human life. I don't know that anybody can escape that. The question is, are you going to feel those feelings in the little life? Or are you going to allow the same feelings to be in the big life, and yet be living the big life, right? I'd rather be living the big life and have some of those feelings than live in a small life and have those feelings. But in the big life, you're also creating space, and you're going to have moments where you've gone through the tough challenges and you're like, wow, gosh, I feel like 10 times stronger because I actually went through the challenge, because it wasn't all just given to me, right? Like we want that. There's something fun and engaging about it, even when it doesn't feel great in the moment. So the action is where you're going to know what you need to overcome. Starting the thing. I have met too many people who tell me they got to get all their ducks in a row. They're going to spend the next year like creating the plan and researching everything to death and blah blah blah, and maybe even meditating, doing all the inner work so that they feel like they're going to be perfect, and then all of a sudden it's going to be easy. What they're actually doing is just trying to avoid the fear that they feel. But the thing is, when we take a step and another step and another step, that fear is being conquered and slayed instantly. So there is a space and in place for, being in action to see, like, to me, like when I said I'm going to start a business, that business started within a couple of months, right? And I know I sat in fear for 2 months before I started it. And then it was like, what am I doing? It's never going to happen if I just sit here waiting for these feelings to go away. So I took the action, and then, things happened, and contracts and clients showed up, and awesome. It just was awesome because now I was living it. And then, there was another challenge, and then there's a challenge of growing, and then you want to increase and you want to expand who you are and what you have to offer. Well, who I am today, then what I could offer 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago is dramatically different. It just is. And it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't kept taking the steps and I was waiting for those moments when I was going to feel like a new person. Acting on the new self is what creates a new self in this physical reality. And while I'll tell you stories of manifestations where I literally just closed my eyes, tapped into what I wanted, felt it strongly, literally for a couple of minutes, and then found it showing up in my life, those do happen. They happen all the time. But that doesn't exclude action. Because I don't know, most entrepreneurs, most creatives, we want to do the work. We have fun. Like, I love being in front of somebody and then like looking at some of their, their bigger challenges and making them come to be. I love that because I know, like, I can empathize with when the times that I'm there. And then vice versa, when I've sought help as well, right? To have somebody there also saying, yes, you can, and seeing me, that brings out power. So on that note, I just want to remind you that I do work with people one-on-one, and I may look at group programs in the coming year as well. But right now, I just feel that a lot of people do like that one-on-one attention. Maybe they just want one session, or maybe a few weeks of a package where we can work on whatever it is that's really at the forefront of their mind and in the center of their heart, to begin creating it. So they are on that trajectory now. They're in that new story. They know what kind of grooves they can start paving to really strengthen the new story. This is a powerful time. The world's in on it, right? We're all like feeling it. And so to really use it and make it something special for you, where you're going to glide into the new year and know that you're gliding into your new story. Like, just imagine how that would feel. So if you would like to work with me in that regard, just click the link in the description box and you can set that up. Obviously in the next probably 2 days, and on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, I won't be available. But outside of that, there is some flexibility. And I work with people from all over, so we usually can sort out something if you're in a very different time zone. Let's have you feel excited, connected, and engaged in this new story, in this new version, in this new self, so that its life force gets strengthened and amplified now. You don't have to wait. Make every day count and live it now.